recorded.
Council at large, Cummins.
Here.
At large, Poston.
Here.
Council Ward number 1, Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2, Helm.
Here.
And Ward number 3, McNeil.
Here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we're going on to the agenda approval. If there are no additions, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Poston with the first and Cummins with the second.
Helm.
Yes.
Poston.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Hembry.
Yes.
Cummins.
Yes.
All right, so we'll move down to the communications. There were no scheduled, so if anybody would like to address the city council, you make your way to the podium. And there's no one online, so I will close that portion of the meeting and we'll move down to the consent agenda. These can be enacted with one motion. It's the approval of the airport minutes from August of 22, approval of the public works update from September of 22, approval of the investment treasurer's report from August of 22, approval of trunk or treat for Sunday, October 30th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. in the park, approval of the use of the parking lot between East 5th and the courthouse for the Pumpkin Fest on Thursday, October 26th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Also, the approval of the mayoral appointment of Scott Stuhlin to the city's Tipton Development Commission, approval of ballistic vest purchases in the amount of $2,497.50, approval of a revolving loan fund application for Todd Foss, approval of the 2022 Community Forestry Grant Agreement, and the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under the current purchase policy. Any of these need to be pulled out?
Mayor, could I have them 9 to 10 poll?
Yeah. Anything else? Then, Mr. Hembry?
Okay, in the claims register, it showed that we were charged $750 to write that grant. And then with the approval of the 10,000 for the tree grant, why didn't that go through the tree committee? Was there a point in time that the tree committee had a meeting without me being asked to participate, or is that?
Steve?
These grant applications don't depend on an okay by the tree committee. We deal directly with the DNR. We had about 2 weeks to get this grant put together.
When you say we, you mean the city?
That would be Joanne Crock, who is a volunteer, and myself.
Okay.
No, the tree committee, nobody on the, it was just Joanne and I. We
And,
got this.
okay.
So did Joanne receive the $750 then to write the grant? Didn't she?
She's written 4 grants for us now. She never received anything before.
So that negates volunteer.
Those were just her cost, basically. I can give you that sheet, what she spent with pictures and travel and whatever. I think I gave that to you.
All the receipts.
You know, the tree committee around wasn't involved, hasn't been involved really with hardly any of the grants up front. Depending on whose grant it is, if it's a Lions Club, going for a Lions Club grant, they have a committee. The Rotary had a committee last year that came up with 92 trees. That didn't go through the tree committee. There were some members on the Rotary and on the Lions Club that are also on the tree committee. But Larry Hodgson is a Lion and, or was at the time, and he's been very active as a volunteer. And he is now on the tree committee as well since Bart passed away.
At what point in time was Larry appointed to the tree committee then?
Last year, when Bart passed away. I don't even know if it went through Brian, but I asked him to join because he was doing a lot of the volunteer work. And he's been valuable in that.
So with that appointment, it then run through the council
You know, the tree committee,
for the replacement for it.
I'm not sure the tree committee was even originally a standing committee in the city. The tree committee evolved when we, in 2010, I believe, 2009, when we started applying for the Tree City USA award. They wanted a tree committee. We didn't have a tree committee up until that point. I guess I can be at fault on that. I didn't run that through the council. I went to people in the community that volunteered to be on that tree committee. Most of them were people, older people. And there was no council member on it. Tree City USA requirements were that there needed to be 5 volunteers in the community. Had no requirement for a council member on it. It's not like the other committees within the city that Brian appoints.
So even though Dean Anderson at the past as a council member was part of the tree committee,
He
it
was,
wasn't as a council member capacity, even though it was approved by the council for his position as a tree board member. That's what I'm kind of going for. Dean Anderson, he owned the greenhouse forever. He was on the tree committee. He was active. And
that's right.
He
He wasn't on the tree committee because he was a council member, though. He was on the tree committee because I asked him to be.
And 3 years ago, the mayor set forth the committees, which even Councilmember McNeil sat there and said, well, we all know who's on the tree committee, and he stared down and looked at me. And nobody had remembered in February when it was an appointment in January. My comment to that is, as a tree committee member, I would really like to be actively involved, or at least have some participation on the city's behalf as a council member for it, if that's at all possible.
Well, we're going to be organizing this planting of 54 trees. It's going to be October 19th. We've got about a month to get this organized with, and we're working with the school. We're working with volunteer organizations like we have the last year and a half. And there will be some meetings, and you're sure welcome to be involved with that and contribute. I haven't intentionally kept you out of that loop because the tree committee, as I set it up 10 years ago, met once a year. That was the requirement for the Tree City USA application, a 1 annual meeting. And you might not even have one. It says, if you have one, that's good. If you don't, they're still okay with that, as long as you've got a committee. That committee was designed to give feedback to me and the Public Works Department for what the community wants, basically. What do we need out there? Where do we want to put trees? What's the concerns? We've been at the park, we've been at the library. So those are the kind of things the tree committee was set up to do. And if you look in the Tree City USA guidelines, you'll find that's what the Tree City guideline is. That's what they want. It's a little different than the rest of the committees that are set up by the mayor, like the tree committee, personnel committee, and all that. You're sure welcome to attend. I thought you were given notice on one and couldn't come last year. Was that right, or am I mistaken?
One last year was probably when I was in Texas, moving the daughter from Texas to Leonardwood.
Typically, that one annual tree committee meeting is in December. We have that and document that and then submit that with the Tree City application.
Well, the other piece of that is, I know there's expenses being incurred by the utilities through tree work. And I'd effectively like to see that better documented. And that's partially why I asked about the 750 for the grant writing. Your staff time, your equipment time, all those materials should be documented back against that department so that the community and the citizens can truly see what the expenses are coming from Public Works to cover that.
For example, what expenses would those be?
Well, if you don't mind, that can be done through an email or a phone call, right?
Yep,
Instead of
we can
taking
follow
up
up
our
with an email.
public meeting time.
You know,
Because I know that all the expenses go through our budget, our tree budget.
remember, the original question was, should we apply for $10,000 in grant funds? And tonight, the question is, should we accept a grant for 10,000? I mean, I would think that you'd all want to say yes to that. There are things on here that, number 4 under city business is 29,500. We didn't run that through the street committee per se. We brought it here. There are some items, usually I don't know about the tree committee. I think there is a section in the city code that talks about a tree board, but I don't remember what it says. But at least when I've used committees, it's because we want to bounce ideas off of a couple council members before a meeting, or see if something's gonna fly or not fly. If it's something that is more or less something that's been talked out or past practice or seems highly likely, we usually just come directly to the council. Now, if you want us to do something differently with the different committees, we can sure give it a try.
Well, I know that last year we applied for 3 different grants. We received all 3 for a lot of money. And over 200 trees planted. And I didn't feel like there was any resistance to that.
There's no resistance from this.
So and if we get, we're in a situation where we can get money right now, but I don't know that that's gonna continue for very long. That's probably gonna burn out at some point.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Cummins with the first and Helm with the second.
Poston,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm.
So that takes us down to a public hearing. We have a public hearing for the proposed private sanitary sewer service line easement as requested by the Cedar County Co-op. I need a motion to to open the public hearing.
Motion.
Cummins with the first and Poston with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poston.
Yes.
All right, so the public hearing is open.
And prior to the public hearing, we have not received any written or other input either way on this topic.
All right. Seeing if there are none, is there a motion to close this public hearing?
Motion.
Poston with the first and Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm,
Yes.
Poston.
Yes.
All right, so the first order under city business, it's a resolution that would direct the city manager to work with the Cedar County Co-op to create a written easement agreement for the private sanitary sewer service. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, and if this resolution is passed, it still doesn't make it a done deal. What it does is it draws up the agreement, and it has the creation of a surveyor's legal description and a diagram of the easement and its location. And there are 7 points in the resolution that describes what the council is approving, not limited to this necessarily, but the idea is to include these 7 points. If, for example, along the way, the co-op has a problem with any of these, then it could mean we start all over again with a new public hearing if they want the terms to change. But these were the terms as we understood them when the hearing was set. And if the council approves this, we'll work with the city attorney. Well, the co-op will have to work with their attorney and work with our attorney to make sure everything works as an easement agreement and exhibit This is just the go ahead to take it to the next step. But I should say, if you go to this next step, it would signal that this agreement is highly likely if it follows the parameters of the resolution that's here.
Any comments or discussion on this? I could start out. The people I've talked to aren't in favor of it. The residents I've talked to, they're just not in favor of having anything run under those fields
Did they give a reason?
because they don't want it torn up at any point.
That'd be my concern.
In the
What do you do
future.
if something happens? That'd be my concern.
And then as the mayor, I'm very hesitant to give up control of city-owned property.
Well, Mayor, I have more concern that how would the city guarantee that it's just residential waste and not industrial waste too?
Never thought of that.
There's been numerous times to where activities and functions change over time, and there's a pipe that's tied to it. You know, Iowa City's notorious for hooking sewer to drinking water one time by the U, and that got everybody's attention about 10, 12 years ago because it was a force main. Here, they're an industrial business. It should be an industrial line.
Anybody else? All right, then I'll ask for a motion one way or the other on this resolution.
Motion to deny.
Cummins with the first to deny, Hembry with the second.
Hembry,
No.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poshton,
Yes.
McNeil,
What'd you motion?
Deny.
What she said.
So voting yes means you agree to deny.
yeah.
Yep.
Hembry said
Just
no.
wanted to get
And
that
yeah, Hembry
straight.
said no, and
He
McNeil said yes.
seconded it.
What did
He
you say?
seconded
You
it.
there? You got it now?
Yeah, good.
Hembry did second it.
And then he said no. Okay.
Then McNeil.
I didn't say, did I say your name?
Mine was a yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. Then moving on to number 2, a discussion of possible act.
The final vote was what to what? 4-1 to deny.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Second one, which is discussion of possible action that would authorize a city letter of support for the Tipton Rotary Club's project to replace the city parks north shelter. City Parks North Shelter. We have a picture in there, some pictures in our packet. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, very generous and thoughtful offer from the Rotary. They would replace that north shelter with one that's similar to a shelter that it's pictured in the write-up for this, that was recently constructed out at the fairgrounds. They would like to do a grant application to the Cedar County Foundation. That's what a letter of support would mean, but it would also mean that the city would be agreeable to accepting this gift, this project. And the only thing that they've asked in return is that city staff be responsible for the demolition of the current shelter house, if it all goes through, and the removal of the existing concrete, and they would do the rest. So they're looking at trying to apply for 10,000 and put up 10,000, but I don't want to steal their thunder by saying what the actual work would be, but it would be significantly more than the 20,000 we're talking about here. And we also included a few pictures that Adam took that shows that the current structure has problems.
Any questions or discussions on this? Is there a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Hembry was first and Cummins with the second.
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry.
Yes.
Awesome. Number 3, a discussion and possible action concerning an engineering services agreement with Garden and Associates for North Plum Street.
Yeah.
North Plum.
Yeah, in-house, we've been calling it North Plum. This follows what we've tried to do over the last few years. We did it in the case of the pavement on West 7th. We did it last year with other paving project, like North Avenue, for example. We try to do the engineering at this point of the year so that the bid specs can be put out for bids in the winter and hopefully the December, January time period, when contractors are really looking for work for the following year. And then the contract would then be for the next fiscal year. So what we did in those other cases was we said that a contractor could start before July 1, our fiscal year's beginning, as long as they didn't bill us until after July 1, so that it works out with our CIP. So this follows that practice. This has Garden and Associates proposal for North Plum, and it's broken into 2 segments, adding up to the $67,500. The first one does preliminary and final design and takes it through the bidding process. That's for $24,900. The rest is for construction observation or construction inspection. That's $42,600. And so in order to keep projects rolling, we brought it here tonight to see if the council wants to approve this.
And just point out too, without this, we can't really do that project.
Right, yeah.
Any questions on it?
This same engineering firm that did 10th Street.
10th Street.
The Mulberry and 10th?
They did Mulberry in that portion of 10th. Or are you talking further back in time?
That was
Further
Origin.
back in time.
Oh,
Origin on, that was detour work, I believe you're talking about. Or which part of town?
Portion without the rock underneath it.
the portion that we had to,
Not last year's concrete. Something before that.
the one before that, when Bolt was here.
Oh,
I think that was,
110.
I think it was
Yeah, that would have been dry.
5 years ago.
But they didn't put the subgrade in on the north side based on the city
Not-
wanted to save money.
Not based on their recommendation.
And the new one that was put in here a year ago, now we have a subgrade on the north side based on our experience.
yeah, when we've worked with them on other projects, and there've been a number since I've been here, they haven't tried to skimp on anything like that.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion.
Posture with the first to approve. And Helm with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, next one is discussion and possible action concerning a change order for the storm intakes on North Avenue from All American Concrete. Steve, Mr. Wagner?
Steve's. He has a memo
I think
on
you
it.
got that probably in your packet. Initially, when we talked about that at the last meeting, it
Yep.
was, they thought, well, it could be 6,500 per intake, just ballparking it. after they got to looking at it, like I said in my write-up, they realized there was a little more piping involved, and 3 of them came in at
$7,000.
7,000, and one was 8,500. The thing with All American is they are not pipe people. They are, so they have to bring somebody else in to do that kind of stuff. They are pavers, and that's where we're kind of getting a little bump up there.
All right.
We still have options, do it ourselves and tear things up next year. But I still think this is probably a better way to go, even with at this number. We don't know next year, guys, what things are gonna cost. That concerns me quite a bit. Like, where's concrete going? Where's piping going? I don't know. Anyway,
All right. If there are no questions, I'll ask for a motion to approve or deny.
Motion to approve.
McNeil with the first to approve, and Poston with the second.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes,
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, down to number 5. It's a discussion possible action concerning a quote to reconstruct the 10th Street North Avenue intersection. It's quoted at $65,000. Mr. Wagner?
Well, Steve, let's call you back up again. You collected the quote. How, could you describe on All Americans proposal for, that includes 10th Street, how far they're going on 10th Street? That was one of the questions about trying to make it a complete intersection.
after the last meeting, a couple of you contacted me, what would it cost to do the whole thing? I said, well, I'll contact them. I met with Bill Simon and his son Jay up there a couple days later. We looked at that intersection, of course, where it's stopping right now, coming south, and then all the way to going west to the concrete, and then to the east, I don't know how many feet that is, but to where we finished last year's project on 10th Street, the new street last year. Looking at that as concrete, the whole thing, and doing that intersection as one unit, which would be the way to go with that. I'm still convinced of that. You got that in front of you, I guess, 66,000. It would be done right if they could get it in this year. That's the other thing. If we run into a rainy fall at some point, I'm not sure we could even get that. Now, the other concern that I have, and Melissa is looking at me, the other concern I have is, of course, that bites into next year's North Plum thing. And I am just not too anxious to put that back another year for those folks. They have been incredibly patient up there. Now, we can still come back and do this project at another point, and Brian and I have talked about that, maybe in a year or two, to tie it in with another project. But North Pond is pretty well tapped out. We're not sure we've got enough money to do that one. We can't add to that one. And she's smiling and nodding. I like that. So,
It just,
doesn't always happen in my world.
just on this quote though, is it the case that what's in this quote here would have covered the alligator portions of 10th?
It would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would take care of that. Now, that's a good point. I think that alligator section there would, that's probably gonna hold together for a couple more years. And we can get that with a patch machine too, if we think it's really come apart, but we could live with that for a couple of years yet. But I think if we're gonna do that, I would strongly look at doing the whole project as one project, the whole thing as one project at intersection.
Does that include that? I mean, the council also considered doing that short area, just get it up to 10th. That was quoted at around, I think it was 7,000.
Yeah.
Does the future project you're talking about include that?
Yes.
Okay.
it would include that. There would be no base needed under that section, of course. But it would have to take some of it out, actually, because we're talking 7 inches of concrete, I believe. And I think we probably got 4 inches of asphalt there right now.
So the original question was, did the council want to spend the 7,000 to take out that area that was redone 4 or so years ago? The next question is, does the council want to consider this quote that's here tonight? Or do you want to hold off on doing anything right now and try to incorporate these areas in a future project?
That's my motion.
Okay,
Hold off.
to put it into a future
Exactly.
project. Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been first and seconded, basically to deny this project. Oh, sorry, it was McNeil and Poston.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
All right, next up is a discussion of possible action concerning the industrial feeder project material purchase at 39,402. Brennan or John?
This is just the last material that is needed for this project unless I hear back from our engineering and Trimco. I sent them a list of what I've got ordered, what I'm waiting on, which is this, and unless you see something else, this will be the end of it.
So after this is just waiting for it to get delivered
Yeah,
at some point?
What's currently the furthest out you're looking for deliveries to be made?
interduct, which you guys approved, will be July next year.
Yikes.
That's the furthest. That's the latest for any material. And of course, it's the first thing.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. All right. If there are no questions for John, is there a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Poston with the first and Helm with the second?
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right, number 7, it's a second reading of an ordinance that amends chapter 106, which is the collection of solid waste of the city code of ordinances. So if there's no questions on this, is there a motion to approve this second reading? Cummins with the first
Second.
and Poston with the second.
Cummins, Helm,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
No.
All right, this will place a third reading for the ordinance on our next agenda. And moving down to number 8, which is a discussion of possible action concerning a garbage exemption for 2 apartment buildings located on West 4th Street. This was tabled, so I need a motion to take it off the table. Cummins with the first
Second.
and McNeil with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
All right, so it is off the table. Are there any updates or anything, Mr. Wagner? Melissa?
There are no updates, just a reminder that the exemption, he was billed according to our current ordinance, so he wouldn't qualify for an exemption as we've done in the past.
Sure officially what I have to say, then get it, Kevin.
Mhm.
I guess my first question on your comment, why are you voting to change that ordinance?
Because we don't agree that the ordinance is probably the most efficient way to bill.
And you told me you were gonna do that 3 years ago.
We've been working on it, like I said, with the last.
Yeah.
meeting.
My question on that, if I was to set up a maintenance agreement with the city of Tipton 3 years ago, for $75 a month doing miscellaneous repairs and everything, whatever it is, $75 a month, it was an agreed contract. And after 3 years, after 2 months, he calls us, Kevin, you haven't done anything yet. Our stuff's piling up. I continue to send you a bill every month for $75. Calls, repeated calls. Hey, we had a derecho. Boy, we're busy. We're backed up. We'll get there. Every month I continue to send you a bill for $75. I'm gonna see your heart. You pay the bill. After a year, we go back in and, let's see, we had a meeting after a year, didn't we? And I sat down with you guys and said, yep, I promise, I'll get this all caught up, we'll deal with it, I'll be back in session the next month or so. Another year goes by and we talk about it, and I'm trying to remember, get my memory down. But then again, it's brought up that, wait a minute, we have an issue, let's deal with this. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I had a meeting today, and I'm gonna send it out to department heads and let everybody know where we're at. That's where we were at year 2, weren't we? And I should have something back to you in the next week or 2. Okay, so a year beyond that now, and again, I'm billing the city $75 every month. Haven't done that, not a thing. And finally, the city gets after 3 years, said, Kevin, we appreciate you're a nice guy, but we paid you $75 every month for 3 years. You've done absolutely nothing. Not one single thing has been done. Would you be happy with that?
I think the thing that you're forgetting is that you're being billed according to the ordinance as it's written. And I understand that you may not agree with how it's written, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And we have been working on correcting it. But what you're requesting right now is to have a refund to you, not to your tenants, to you, because you don't agree with how the ordinance is written.
You
I
didn't
don't know
either.
that that is the fairest thing to be asking.
You didn't either. If you-
That's
All right.
not-
So,
That's where we're at.
Yep.
That's exactly where we're at. So, I mean, obviously, if the city wants to refund and go back, you've got records of all the tenants' names. If you feel my comment simply was, in your new ordinance, you're no longer billing the landlord for the dumpster. You're going back to what I talked about last time. It said, the tenants generate the garbage
Mhm.
and they should be responsible for paying to get rid of it. That's my only comment. And
All right.
obviously, you must agree with that also, because that's what the new proposal is.
Okay.
So,
all right.
obviously, you weren't happy with the old one. You told me that the day I talked to you 3 years ago.
Right.
You said you're one of 6 people that have a problem. We know it, and we'll get something figured out.
And that's what
So
we're here.
that goes back that I billed
Yep.
the city of Tipton $75 a month for doing absolutely nothing.
It's billed according to the-
And we still picked up the trash. So, all right, thank you, Kevin. So we'll move ahead with, if there is a motion to approve or deny this exemption.
I'll make a motion to deny.
All right, Poston with the first to deny
Second.
and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
No.
Hembry,
No.
Cummins.
All right, moving on to number 9. This is an ordinance that would amend chapter 69, the parking regulations of no parking zones. This would be first reading. Chief Dufour?
This is the area between, it's on Lemon Street between 6th and 7th Street. I think I brought it up about a month or so ago that I'd like to see this done. It's a safety issue for the kids, doing pick up and drop off. And we've already put no parking between 5th and 6th. And now this is 6th and 7th on the west side. It used to be 20-minute parking for parent pickup. We have people park there for like 2 hours. And we go talk to them, and then the next day they do it. So we've had temporary no parking because we were going to have, that is our detour route for the highway bridge project. And so they're used to it. And so I just want to make it permanent. So that's why.
Any questions for Chief? Is there a motion to approve this first reading?
Motion.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
Posturing,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm,
Yes.
All right, thank you, Chief. Second reading will be on our agenda next time. Number 10, discussion and possible action that would authorize the city staff to work on a revised staffing plan that would include a director of utilities who would oversee the electric, water, and wastewater utilities. Mr. Wagner?
We met recently with the council's personnel committee, Tim and Abby, so I'm gonna invite them to comment if they want to, but we have been considering taking the interim role that Brian Brennan has performed and making a more formal structure where he would be in the role he is largely now, but it would be made permanent. It seems that in the several weeks since he was appointed for that role, it has worked. It's worked organizationally, it's worked on a leadership role. It's been more efficient. I think you, as a council, you've seen the weekly updates and the comments that I've seen from you have been very appreciative of how this has flown since it started, what's gotten done, and knowing what has gotten done. And so we thought, well, let's talk to the personnel committee and see if there's any desire to see if we can work on a structure that formalizes what we have been doing. And the personnel committee was supportive of the idea. It doesn't mean that it's like a lot of things you consider, you give an initial okay. This doesn't make anything a done deal. It just gives us some ability to work on a structure that might work for Tipton that is not exactly traditional. You know, the structure we had is more traditional. This is a little bit less traditional, but we think it could work. And we want to see if it could work efficiently as far as money goes. Now, I mean by that, not just what it costs to have a position like this, but what that position working more day to day in the field can do to save money. Anyway, I guess, again, I'd invite either Tim or Abby to join in with what your thoughts are, but that was basically the input we received, was there was at least a willingness to see if something could be worked out and then come back.
I've kind of been thinking about it since we met, and I kind of want to keep it traditional. Brian, you're the city manager. I got to thinking you should be you're the manager of the departments that you were proposing for Brian to oversee. I'd like to keep Brian in wastewater, running the plant. And then thinking about finding an electric superintendent. I keep thinking about John. He's been here a long time. He knows this system. And I think we can just make him the electric superintendent and let him build this system back up. I think he's fully capable of doing that. That's where I stand as a committee member.
I think, I don't know about any of that because I haven't had time to think about that. But I think as far as what we discussed, I think it's important that when we're looking at any format that we do, whether we stick with traditional or we modify it, that it needs to be looked at as the position, not the person. I don't want to look at the outline and say, okay, this is where we have Brian and this is where we have John and this is where we have Clay and this is, whoever it is. I want to look at it and say, this is where we have our superintendent or whoever it is, and this is where we have our wastewater person or whoever. Are you following what I'm saying? It needs to be the position, not the person. We need to develop it based on the position, not based on the person.
As far as a traditional structure here, I think it's hard to make the case that it's worked. You have the structure, but you also have people who fill the structure. And, going back over the years, and this includes, this isn't just our most recent utility superintendent. It goes back before him. I keep hearing stories about how it was, how things didn't get along, or people didn't get along, things didn't get done. This seems to be a structure where things have been getting done. And I think in the end, that's what it's about, isn't it?
From the discussions I've had with Brian and Melissa and also our personnel committee, it sounds like moving forward, the city of Tipton, God love it, won't be able to compete with salaries for full-fledged heads of utilities. Not trying to say we would undercut anyone, but by having the utility director of utilities, that would open up different titles for those underneath that director. As opposed to, because I know Brian reached out a couple of times to find out about electric superintendents, and there was no.
Well, firms that have typically done that type of recruitment haven't done it for electric superintendents. And the wholesale provider that we have, RPGI, I contacted their administrative person, and she wasn't aware of how, of any good way to do it except put out ads, which is what has happened in the past. I would, Tim's position tonight, I didn't know that was coming. I guess I would, if there are concerns about this, I don't want to get into the next stage of this tonight, which is probably talking about personalities and who fits where. I don't think we ought to be doing that at a meeting like this. I mean, before that happens, I'd rather have it go back to the committee and see what can be worked out.
Do you want to table it?
If the committee is willing to have it come back and discuss it more.
I just want to say, I think Brian Brown's doing a great job, but I agree with Tim. I wish you guys would have included the rest of the council in this instead of getting this at Friday at 4:00. Pretty tough decision. I work all day too. I can't make phone calls, figure out what's going on. I know every town's like this. You get your agenda at 4:00. I guess it just would have been nice to have a heads up on this whole thing too. Is the way I feel. I don't know about the rest of you. So it's a pretty big, important decision to make with a little bit of time to communicate about it.
I agree, because I'm under the impression Brian is doing,
He's
he's doing a fantastic job,
Yeah.
fantastic. You brought up a good point, though. It's after you. That's the only point I'm at.
And I think John's been doing a great job too.
Yeah, they all are. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job. I've heard nothing but good good report out of everybody I've talked to about what's going on. John's doing a fantastic job also. You all are. But after you're gone, what happens if we just have one person again and we can't find the right person like you?
And then who takes over water? I mean, Clay's been doing it now, so who takes over the mechanic? I mean,
Well,
it
that'd be,
seems like we have a domino effect going here. So we're gonna fix one Band-Aid and start with the others. That's my feeling.
Motion to table for further
I'll
discussion.
second.
Discussion,
what?
discussion. I was not called on, please.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. You just yelled it out, so I didn't know what that meant.
From the time I graduated high school, I haven't done nothing but dealt with civil engineering. With Red Horse and the Air Force. We have structure top to bottom. Whiteman Air Force Base is a prime example of what structure can be created. Now individuals and upper management can take charge of the staff and the subordinates that follow underneath them. You cannot promote individuals based off wages or personal likes. You have to base off skill sets and what talents they bring to the table and the strengths they have for the position you fill. Abby's spot on. Have a position, make the person meet that criteria, not because you like them, but because they meet the criteria. Whether it be in a drinking water facility, wastewater, advanced, electrical. We had 62 people take care of the B2 bed down. That was over 30 years ago. And that was back when I was a peon, and I was handed the ball because I was forced to, similar to what Mr. Brennan has been required to do, because we made an adjustment in the electric department. It's fine, he's been able to fill that position, but the electric department, unless you want it to go privatized and let the privatization come out of it, I think you need an electric superintendent that has an understanding that can tell you the different voltages and loads, everything electrical, whether it be based off amps, ohms, or watts. The person don't have that electrical skill set. No. Anybody, a lot of people are taught to be management, a lot of people are taught to be like. You gotta have the skill set. And that's the key issue for the utility, because for the last 23 years I've been here, our electric utility has done this community a wealth of good. And when I say wealth, financial. It has paid off, partially from what the old people did, by buying the lights up. And that was the biggest benefit the old timers put into this community. And it's helped us out throughout the years. So when you look at your structure, they don't have the skill set for it. They're not ready to fill the position.
All right, so it's been first and seconded to put on the table.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian.
Yes.
All right, so we're down to the mayor's report, or all the reports. Mayor's report, I don't have anything this week. Council? Committee reports? City manager's report? Department heads? All right, then that brings us down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
McNeil with first and Postian with second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.